welcome. This is Arirang News coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung. Let's start with a look at the stories making headlines at this hour. The two-day Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit starts in Busan. President Park Geun-hye lays out her ways to boost economic ties between the two sides, especially in the service sector. The Bank of Korea takes a wait-and-see approach and holds its key interest rate at 2% in December, this following two cuts earlier in the year. And it's time to look for new approaches when it comes to dealing with North Korea, says South Korea's unification minister Ryoo Kihl-jae. The remarks are made during his trip to Washington. But first, we go to Korea's second biggest city, Busan, where the Korea-ASEAN Commemorative Summit is taking place. We have our Hwang Sung-hee standing by there for us. Sung-hee, what's the latest?
Hyun-kyung, in her opening remarks at the Korea-ASEAN CEO Summit, President Park Geun-hye made three proposals for further bolstering their economic cooperation. Now, the first is creating conditions for small and medium-sized firms to help them take part in global markets more easily. President Park called the CEO Summit the perfect place for such discussions, since representatives from both the conglomerates and small and medium-sized firms are present. Second, she proposed expanding economic cooperation between Korea and ASEAN into the service sector beyond the energy and manufacturing sectors. President Park showed a willingness to lift regulations preventing such diversification.
어떤 분야의 규제 개혁이 필요한지 현장에 목소리를 전달해 주시면 아세안 국가와 협의해서 영내 포괄적 경제 동반자 협정 협상에 반영을 하는 등 적극적으로 개선해 나가겠습니다.
Lastly, President Park called for further liberalization of the Korea-ASEAN Free Trade Agreement to open up more business opportunities. She noted that the efficiency rate of the Korea-ASEAN deal is only half of Korea's FTAs with other countries and urged for additional negotiations to improve the existing deal. Hyun-kyung?
Now, yesterday, I understand President Park held a one-on-one with some of the 10 ASEAN leaders, and today she has more scheduled, correct?
That's right. President Park has been holding relay bilateral talks with 6 ASEAN leaders today. In the afternoon, she was scheduled to meet with leaders from Laos, Thailand, the Philippines, and Singapore. And following these bilateral meetings, President Park and the 10 visiting leaders will take part in a Korean culture experience program before heading to a welcoming dinner. Now, the actual multilateral summit, which is divided into 2 sessions, will be held tomorrow. Seoul's Foreign Ministry has noted this is the most important diplomatic event of the year, since it is the first multilateral summit to be hosted by South Korea under the Park Geun-hye administration. Hyun-kyung?
All right, thank you, Sung-hee, for the update. That was our Hwang Sung-hee reporting live from Busan. Now, in line with President Park's initiative to boost economic ties with ASEAN, Korea and Vietnam concluded free trade negotiations late Wednesday night. It took almost 2.5 years to reach the deal. Our Choi Yoo-sun takes a closer look at what the Korea-Vietnam FTA entails.
The concluding of Korea's free trade agreement with Vietnam may not seem like a big deal, considering the 7-year-old Korea-ASEAN FTA, but it's expected to help Korean small and mid-sized firms increase their exports to the Southeast Asian nation. Vietnam will remove tariffs on 200 additional products from Korea, including auto parts and cosmetics, many of which are manufactured by SMEs. Hanoi has also agreed to simplify its rules of origin and customs clearance, allowing textile and garments made in the inter-Korean Kaesang Industrial Complex to benefit from the simplified process. Seoul will open its market for nearly 500 additional Vietnamese goods, while excluding sensitive agricultural products such as rice, fresh garlic, and ginger. Korean companies specializing in tires and cotton anticipate boosting price competitiveness against their Japanese rivals in Vietnam. Compared to Tokyo's FTA with Hanoi, Korea has secured liberalization of more goods entering Vietnam, 2 percentage points higher in terms of import value. Considering Vietnam is Korea's #1 investment destination in Southeast Asia, the two sides have also bolstered protective measures for their respective investors.
Although the FTA with Vietnam will have a relatively limited effect on the domestic economy, it's expected to help Korea in joining regional trade networks such as the China-led FTAAP. It's also expected to speed up negotiations for two-way deals with other ASEAN members to increase Korean businesses' usage of the trade pact. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News, Busan.
And staying on the topics related to this summit, for those of you who are in Korea and are not so familiar with Southeast Asian nations, but one day would like to travel to the area, you might want to pay a visit to Seoul's Gwanghwamun Square this week. Our Park Ji-won went there first and brings us this report.
These lighted installation art pieces are called the Jewels of ASEAN, with each representing a landmark in each of the 10 ASEAN member countries. From the magnificent Sultan Omar Ali Saifuddin Mosque in Brunei to the famous Buddhist site of Sheragan Pagoda in Myanmar, the replicas are set up at Gwanghwamun Square, facing Korea's landmark Gyeongbokgung Palace. They symbolize the rich cultures and values of the ASEAN countries.
We are the traveler from Thailand, and we are happy to see our landmark from Thailand. Is Wat Arun. It's a representative temple in Thailand, very popular in Thailand.
The exhibition was organized to celebrate the beginning of the two-day ASEAN-Korea Summit that starts Thursday in the southeastern port city of Busan.
Each embassy of the respective ASEAN countries designated their representative landmark. They symbolize each member country's cultural heritage, their history, and their future. We hope the project facilitates a deeper understanding of ASEAN countries among the Korean public.
During the exhibition period, a tourism booth will provide visitors information on popular tourist destinations in ASEAN member countries. Fun events like quiz competitions are in store as well. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
In the year 2012 for Korea was at its record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. South Korea's unification minister is in Washington meeting with the senior U.S. officials in charge of North Korea policies. There, he emphasized the importance of Seoul and Washington taking a fresh approach when tackling Pyongyang's nuclear program. Shin Se-min has more.
Speaking at a forum on Korean unification in the U.S. Capitol on Wednesday, Unification Minister Ryoo Kihl-jae said Seoul and Washington needed to work more closely together to engage with North Korea.
To make the pressure more effective, dialogues and cooperation are also necessary. Our two countries should therefore strengthen our coordination for engagement as well.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State agreed and said the allies needed to make it clear to Pyongyang that its pursuit of nuclear weapons leads to a dead end.
North Korea can never achieve the security and the prosperity that it desires while also pursuing nuclear weapons.
Minister Ryu said South Korea and the U.S. needed to come up with creative and diverse approaches to resolve the North Korean nuclear issue, and that it was important to make sure the North knows the benefits of cooperating with the outside world. He said that would ultimately open up more options for North Korea, boosting the quality of life for the North Korean people and demonstrating the regime was serious about improving its human rights problems. Most importantly, Ryu asked for international support, including from the U.S., for Seoul's drive for a peaceful unification, as it will provide growth momentum for the global economy at large. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, a renowned nuclear scientist says North Korea could be in possession of around 20 nuclear bombs in just over a year's time. Sigrid Hecker, who's visiting Seoul for a Korea-U.S. forum, told a group of South Korean lawmakers on Wednesday that Pyongyang is presumed to have the capability to produce some 4 nuclear bombs a year. He added North Korea could conduct several rounds of detonation tests to miniaturize nuclear warheads. In April, Seoul, hacker was reported to have said the North had around 10 nuclear bombs. Now, the Bank of Korea is holding its key interest rate steady at 2% for now, but there are mounting expectations that another cut will come early next year, and that's fanning concerns of record-growing household debts. Hwang Ji-hye has the details.
The Bank of Korea has decided to stand pat on its key interest rate, allowing more time to gauge the impact of two previous rate cuts in the second half of this year. The central bank held the key rate unchanged at 2% in December, following its monthly monetary policy meeting on Thursday. The central bank lowered the rate in August and October each by 0.25 percentage point. The rate cuts, which came in line with government efforts to boost the ailing domestic economy, left the country's base rate at an historic low, not seen since the height of the global financial crisis in 2009. Still, market expectations are growing of an additional rate cut early next year. They're being driven by recent monetary easing in neighboring countries like China and Japan, along with weak economic sentiment at home despite aggressive government stimulus measures. Low inflation also leaves room for more rate cuts. But lowering the key rate would stoke concerns about snowballing household debt that already stands at roughly $950 billion. The government's deregulation drive in the housing sector and a lower key interest rate worked in tandem to boost housing loans. Finance Minister Choi Kyung-han also emphasizes the importance of structural reforms to pull the economy out of its low-growth rut. As top central banker Lee Ju-yeol says, the current 2% rate is sufficient to support the country's recovery momentum. Hwang Ji-hye, Arirang News.
Private investors have until today to apply for shares of Jail Industries, Samsung Group's de facto holding company, which will make its debut on the stock market next week. But the winners that will cash in big stand to be the heirs to Samsung throne. Song Ji-sun reports.
What is currently a 100-to-1 competition to buy shares could swell in size by the end of the day. The race is on to own shares of Jail Industries, the de facto holding firm of Samsung Group, which will be listed next Thursday. Some $14 billion have been deposited in bids by noon for the 5.7 million shares that are available to the public. The third largest IPO ever in the country is made even more attractive due to the listing price, set at just under $50 per share. Many market watchers forecast that figure will easily surpass $100 soon after trading begins on the main bourse.
When you invest in and bid for a share seeking profit, you want the share price to jump to double its IPO price. I'm hoping that will happen in this case since Samsung's a big and stable company.
The company has a diverse portfolio, and there is internal demand from Samsung's subsidiaries. These factors have investors bullish about its mid- and long-term profit outlook.
But the biggest beneficiaries will not be the individual investors. Samsung Group Chairman Lee Gun-he's three children acquired a 40% stake in the company for just $8 million in 1996 through a controversial arrangement, which critics say ensured the controlling family maintained a firm grip on the conglomerate. Lee's heirs are also estimated to have evaded billions of dollars in inheritance taxes and stand to gain some $5 billion in cash if Jail's shares hit $100. Samsung's IPOs and restructuring measures this year are expected to help the chairman's three children gain better control over the conglomerate. The transfer of ownership from the Samsung chairman to his children became an urgent issue for the conglomerate this year, especially after Chairman Lee's heart attack in May. Song Ji-sun, Arirang News.
Cheaper beef is expected to hit Korean shelves starting Friday as a bilateral free trade agreement with Australia takes effect. Korea's trade ministry says the current tariff of 40% will drop by nearly 3 percentage points starting tomorrow. It will continue to be lowered gradually over a 15-year period. Now, watchers expect to see a more noticeable and immediate effect in the prices of Australian wines, though, as the 15% import tax will be eliminated all at once on Friday. OPEC says there will be more oil produced than consumed next year, and on that projection, global oil prices tumbled again on Wednesday, some even to fresh 5-year lows. Kim Min-ji has this report.
OPEC has slashed its estimates for oil demand for 2015. It has lowered its projection to 28.9 million barrels a day, which is down about 300,000 from its previous forecast. The figure is the lowest in 12 years and down about 1 million barrels from what it's currently producing each day. With the cartel's official production target set at 30 million barrels a day, more oil will be produced than consumed next year. The downward revision reflects the upward adjustment of non-APEC and U.S. shale supplies. OPEC says global oil demand is forecast to increase by 1.1 million barrels a day next year, but this will be offset by the estimated growth of 1.36 million in non-OPEC supply. Following the news, global oil prices tumbled to fresh 5-year lows. West Texas Intermediate oil finished 4.5% down at just under $61 per barrel on Wednesday on the New York Mercantile Exchange. This is the lowest level since July 2009. The benchmark Brent crude fell nearly 4% to $64.24. Crude oil prices have slumped by around 40% since June, and experts say it could fall further next year. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Time magazine has given this year's honor of Person of the Year to the men and women fighting on the front lines of the Ebola outbreak. You may not recognize most of the 5 individuals on the 5 separate covers, but they represent the healthcare workers fighting every day on the ground. Among those pictured were Liberia's Dr. Jerry Brown and American missionary Dr. Kent Brantley. In its tribute, the magazine applauded their bravery and commitment. It said they were willing to stand and fight the epidemic so the rest of the world can sleep at night and so the global health system could catch up with a solution to end the, quote, war. To date, Ebola has killed more than 6,300 people in West Africa's Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea, with the death rate currently at about 70%. Now, next year is expected to be a breakthrough year for phone tablets or phablets. Market researcher Starbase says gadgets between 5 inches and 5.7 inches in size will lead the trend, with smaller smartphones and larger PC tablets on the outs. They say these mid-sized phablets have become popular because the larger screens are more convenient for multimedia purposes, but they're still relatively easy to carry around. The global market for smaller smartphones is already showing signs of a slowdown. Now, 마당놀이 in Korean literally means playing on a yard, but it's also the name of a performance that was a phenomenon here in Korea for over 30 years. This year, the performance is back, and our Im Yoon-hee has the details. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon. So, 마당놀이 was first shown in 1981, and it's the brainchild of the acclaimed producer Son Jin-chaek. However, it was a story about a blind father, a courageous daughter, and of course, an evil stepmother. And when it was first shown, it was met with enormous success. It drew in over 2.5 million spectators. But in 2010, the director decided to stop showing all performances despite there still being a strong demand for the show. So we're in luck this year. They're bringing back 마당놀이 with the original cast and some new 21st century twists. Take a look.
For 3 generations, it's developed a reputation as Korea's national performance. From dancing in bright, colorful dresses to parading around with others, 마당놀이 invites the people of Korea to join in on the different forms of traditional folk entertainment. Here, the lines are blurred between the audience and the cast. 마당놀이 disappeared 4 years ago, but now it's come back with more humor and entertainment than ever before. After all, Madangnori means a place to play. And that's precisely what everyone here intends on doing.
We're always curious about the reactions we'll get, whether it be a question or a comment. As we pass people in the audience, they might pat us on the arms or say, "Oh, there goes Baengdeok." Or maybe they'll say, "Why couldn't you do it?" Or, "Baengdeok, you're such a terrible person." So we always have to consider the lively spontaneity of Madangnori while acting.
There are 4 sides to our stage, so the attention has to be distributed to all sides. And when we toss the lines, we have to really throw it. So instead of father, it needs to be father. How do you do? Each line needs to be clearly thrown like that.
Madangnori has now entered the stage. For what was once a performance of the streets, the transition to a formal stage requires a bit of rehearsal. The entire show relies on the consistent rhythm that carries throughout, uniting the 3 resident families of the National Theater of Korea. The National Orchestra, the National Dance Company, and of course, the National Changguk Company. The 3 companies come together on a single stage, each contributing its strengths and unique abilities. Together, they create a box, a 4-sided box, ready to house the performance and the audience into one show where each and every individual can share the experience as a member of this community.
With the idea of community in mind, we didn't want it to be another regular show for the viewers. It involves a lot of communication with the audience, and there's a reason for that. Since it's on a stage, we still wanted to facilitate the communication between everyone. So we built the 4 sides and backed each with banners to create our own space. We also incorporated the use of projectors with the banners so that everyone can be together in the experience. Through this setup, we get a lot more variety and freedom to create that tension between the audience and cast.
The pure-hearted Shim-chung makes the ultimate sacrifice and gives up her life to the lake so that her father can regain his vision. And because of her love for her father, she is saved and blossoms with the beautiful lotus flower in a place where the past is met with the present. A place where the loving, selfless acts go on to do more than anyone had imagined as Shim-chung comes to save the day.
I have a very vague memory. When I was little, I went to one of those madangnoris, and I remember that one of the people dragged some people out from the audience and asked them to take part in the performance.
So that really is a key part of this particular performance, and they wanted to hold true to that core value of madangnori, of it being a performance for the people. And so the cast involves over 80 different members, and of course you have the participation of the audience, so it's a very large-scale performance that everyone really does seem to enjoy when they go.
And along with the all-time favorite Nutcracker, this one I think could be on the list or options to consider to go with the whole entire family and enjoy.
They actually mentioned that they want this madangnori to hopefully become another holiday option for families. So of course you want to see the beloved Nutcracker, but madangnori is another popular show that continues to be very popular for the entire family, from grandparents to the children. And like I said earlier, it's really an inclusive show. When you go there, you can hear all the music, and you have the 4 different sides to the stadium, so you really feel like you're a part of a show. You feel like you're not watching it, but you're actually there participating in this madangnori, this play. And so a lot of people really commented on that's really special and how it's a good time of holiday season to enjoy the show with your family, right?
All right, so maybe this year I'll be a good daughter and buy tickets for my mom and dad.
I'm sure they'll enjoy it.
All right, thank you very much, Jenny, for today's report.
It's always a pleasure.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Temperatures are currently above the freezing point here in Seoul, but the mercury has dropped compared to yesterday by about 2 degrees, and due to the strong winds, the wind chill is hovering right around -5 degrees. And this wind chill is expected to drop even more throughout the day, so make sure to bundle up before heading outside. And along with this cold, heavy snow is in the forecast later tonight. Now, it will start in the west of the country and eventually expanding across the peninsula, with most regions getting between 1 and 5 centimeters. And now to our readings for today. So it will peak to 2 degrees this afternoon. Meanwhile, the southern cities such as Gwangju and Busan will top a bit higher at 7 and 10 degrees. Now moving over to other regions, Jeju Island will see up to 10. Dokdo hits a bit lower at 6, while Mangungang reaches down to -1. Well, that's all for now. Michelle Park, and have a wonderful day.
And that's Arirang News for now. Thanks for staying with us. I'll join you again from Seoul at 4 p.m. Korea time.